Something always goes wrong on a trip. That's just travel. But a lot of what goes wrong in Italy isn't bad luck. It's just not understanding how things work before you arrive.
Italy is amazing, but it naturally has its own way of doing things. If you don't understand how something works, an ordinary moment can turn into a problem really fast.
So we're going to walk you through the things that can go wrong, what they are, why they happen, and what you're going to do so that they don't happen to you. And numbers 16 and 23 are ones we just learned about, and they'll blow your mind.
Andiamo! Not having your passport when you need it is one of the fastest ways to turn a trip into a headache. People will leave it at their hotel or assume that a paper copy or a picture on your phone is good enough.
You see, passports aren't just for the airport. Hotels and Airbnbs will need them when you check in, and some of the major sites like the Vatican or the Colosseum will want to see your passport, and they will compare the name on your passport to the name on your ticket, and if it doesn't match, you won't get in.
In Italy, an original passport is the only ID that really matters for non-EU citizens. You need to have a national ID, and in the US we don't have those, and that's why your driver's license won't work, and neither will a copy of your passport. Now, it's valuable to have a copy of your passport. If you lose it, it makes it easier to replace it, so certainly carry one of those as well.
But by law, you must carry your original passport with you, and the police do occasionally do random checks. And if you don't have it on you, they could fine you. And this doesn't happen very often, but if it does happen to you, you don't want to spend your whole day down at the police station trying to talk your way out of a fine.
So carry it, but carry it carefully, ideally in a money belt underneath your clothes. You don't want to lose it to a pickpocket, because that would mean a trip to the police station, having to go to the embassy or the consulate to get it replaced, or maybe even changes to your trip.
Like all big cities, Italy's big tourist cities have professional pickpockets, and they are very good at what they do. Now, most tourists know that in the abstract, but they still sometimes make themselves easy targets for those pickpockets.
They'll put a phone in their back pocket or carry a backpack or let themselves get distracted while they're taking photographs. Pickpockets work the crowded sites, metro stations, train stations, buses, the popular tourist sites, because that's where the easy marks are. You could say they fish where the fish are. And they often work in groups where someone will distract you and then someone else takes your valuables.
We're not trying to make you paranoid or make you not enjoy yourself. We're just saying that you need to be appropriately cautious, especially when you are in those crowded areas.
Don't make yourself an easy target and the pickpocket will choose someone else to go after. Use a crossbody bag with a zipper. Carry it in front of you with your hand on it. Don't carry your wallet or your phone in your back pocket. And if you carry a backpack, put locks on the zippers. Oh, and importantly, don't carry all your cash and credit cards in one place.
So you don't really need to worry about violent crime. In Italy, it's very rare. And most people are not being threatened or grabbed. They're being distracted. That's why this catches people off guard, because it happens in sort of an ordinary moment when they least expect it. It's critical to have a data plan set up before you come to Italy, because of course you're going to be using your phone for tickets, maps, and messages. So you want to make sure that you get an international plan set up with your carrier back home, or better yet and cheaper yet, get an eSIM for your phone for travel.
The cost for this can be surprising. It's usually $2 a megabyte, which doesn't sound like much until you start thinking that just walking around town, Google Maps uses 6 to 10 megabytes a day. So we get $12 to $20 every day. And then if you start streaming videos, you're into the hundreds. And if you do that many days, you're into the thousands. And yes, this really does happen to people. And the phone companies are not very sympathetic.
No, they are not. If you don't get an international plan set up with your carrier back home, and that costs about $12 a day, you can get a travel eSIM for 15 days that gives you 20 gigabytes of data for less than $30. So it's a pretty good deal.
And it's easy to set up, and you'll have it ready to go when you land.
So we use a company called Airlo when we travel, and we'll put a link to that down below if you want to check it out.
Things have already gone wrong if you can't plug in your phone to charge it. Italy uses different plugs and outlets than we do in the US. They use what's called a Type C and a Type L plug. which is different than the US, the Australia, Canada, the UK. So you can't just plug in your device without an adapter. This is the sort of thing you don't want to discover right when your phone is running out of battery. Your hotel might have some to lend you, but I wouldn't count on that.
I wouldn't count on that. So bring an adapter, bring the proper adapter from home, and also bring a 6-foot or longer extension or cord for the adapter, because outlets in those Italian hotel rooms and Airbnbs are few and far between, and they're really never where you want them to be. They're never in a convenient spot.
I always have that trouble with my CPAP machine. I just won't reach to the outlet across the room.
Oh, and also make sure you bring a battery pack, because when you're out and about using navigation, GPS, taking videos, photos, etc., you're going to run your battery down on your phone really quickly. So you want to be able to have a battery pack that you can recharge, halfway through the day if needed.
On a related note, talking about the electrical system, Italy's system is 240 volts compared to the 120 volts used in the US. And what that means is you can't just plug in an appliance like a hair dryer or a curling iron without it exploding or being ruined at least. What you have to do is bring a dual voltage appliance or a voltage converter, which is a separate device from an adapter.
Not the same thing.
If you're not set up to use WhatsApp when you arrive in Italy, you may not have a reliable way to communicate with the people you need to. People like hosts, drivers, and guides use WhatsApp and expect that you will too. So if you don't have it, you won't be able to get in touch with them and get information or share information with them.
If you've never used it, WhatsApp is just a messaging app that works over data and Wi-Fi. And it's better to get that set up before you leave home so that you're not standing in front of an Airbnb with a lot of luggage wondering how the hell you're going to get into that.
It's also a good idea to have your friends and family at home set it up, because you can make international calls and video calls for free on your data while you're in Italy. But you need to use WhatsApp rather than your cellular plan data.
Right.
Here are some typical uses. A host might want to send you a door code to let you in, or tell you to meet him around the corner rather than right in front of the apartment. A restaurant might want to confirm a reservation, or a tour guide might need to change the location of the meeting point or even the time.
If you're not prepared to get those messages, you may find yourself locked out or missing a tour or standing on the sidewalk wondering what just happened. WhatsApp isn't optional in Italy, it's just how things work. So get it set up before you leave home.
Almost every first-time traveler brings too much stuff to Italy. They're told not to, but they do it anyway. If you read online or listen to YouTube videos, first the people who've been there will offer as advice, and they'll also share that it's their biggest regret about their trip to Italy. They had too much stuff.
The thing is, Italy is just not very forgiving of big luggage, because once you get there, you're going to be dragging it over cobblestones and uneven sidewalks. You're going to have to lug it up steep and narrow stairs often. A lot of old buildings, whether they be boutique hotels or Airbnbs, don't have an elevator. And if they do have an elevator, it's about this big and can fit like one suitcase in at a time. Oh, and trains. Well, you're going to have to lug that thing up the stairs onto the train and up into the overhead place where you keep the suitcases. So there are a lot of reasons why you don't want to have a big suitcase.
It's particularly true if you're going to Venice, because where you're walking any place in town, you're going across the canals. And that means on the bridges going up and down and up and down. You can easily have to go over 5 bridges, some of which are very long, just to get to your hotel.
Yeah. We were just there, so we know of what we speak.
We just did that with normal size suitcases, carry-on size suitcases, and I came back saying that that was too much.
Yeah. Then there's the shoe problem, which is just as real. People bring shoes that really looked good when they were setting out their clothes to pack, but then they turned out to be, they're either not broken in, they have thin or flimsy soles, and they're just not built to go over, 10,000 steps a day or more over cobblestones. That's how people end up with sore feet, blisters, and a trip that starts to feel harder than it really should.
So the lesson here is pretty simple. Pack less than you think you need and bring shoes that are suited for all the walking you're going to do. You don't want your sore feet and your suitcase to be the two things you remember most about your trip to Italy.
A transport strike can blow up a perfectly planned day, and they happen more than you would think. Now, usually it's just one part of the transport system that's affected, either the trains or the buses or the airport workers, but sometimes they all get together and there's a more general strike that happens.
The reason this can be so disruptive is that many people don't find out about it until they're already on their way to the train station. They find out that their train is canceled or that the local transport's not running, and they realize they've got a problem.
The good news is that strikes are actually announced ahead of time, and the general rule is that they're announced 10 days ahead of time. So if you check before you depart, you can avoid having a problem.
So if you have an important train day coming up, check. Here are some resources you can use. There's an official government website that we'll link in the description. And then on the Italo or Trenitalia sites, they also have lists of their trains. And it's good to know that not all the trains are canceled. Some are considered essential and will run. So a strike doesn't necessarily mess up your travel plans.
Missing a train by going to the wrong train station is something you wouldn't think would ever happen to you, but it happens to people all the time because most big cities have more than one train station, but people usually assume that the biggest one is the one that they're going to.
So people see Rome, Milan, Naples on their ticket and assume they know which train station they're supposed to go to without checking. For example, in Rome, the way things go wrong is people assume their train's from Termini, the big station, while some of them go from Tiburtina. In Milan, they assume Milano Centrale, where it might be Porta Garibaldi. And a similar situation exists in Florence and Naples and other cities as well.
So, before you leave for the station, check the exact station name on your ticket. It only takes 10 seconds, but people miss their trains by not doing this. Stowing your luggage and then forgetting about it is a risk when it comes to Italian trains. The surprise comes when you arrive at your station and your bag is gone.
Bags stored away from you at the end of the cars or even over your head can be surprisingly easy to take when the train's arriving in a station and people are starting to get off or you're trying to figure out even just where you are.
The theft usually happens right before you pull into a station. One person will distract you while the other grabs your bag and is then ready to step off the train when the doors open.
So that's the moment to be especially alert. Things that you just can't lose, like your passport and your medications, should always stay with you in your seat, not in the rack overhead or at the end of the car. Now, some people, in fact, will get a cheap cable luggage lock to help secure their luggage in place. This is unlikely to happen, but it's one of those things that if it does, it turns into a major problem.
A nightmare. Not all trains in Italy work the same way, and if you don't understand the differences, you could end up with a trip that's more complicated, less comfortable, and more expensive than what you had expected if you don't know before you buy.
The big difference is between high-speed trains and regional trains. On the high-speed trains, your ticket is for a particular train, a particular seat on that train, and the ticket gets validated automatically when the train leaves the station.
Regional trains are different. There are no assigned seats, so you basically just get on and find a place to sit down. Now, if you bought your ticket online or it's a digital ticket, then it does get automatically validated when the train leaves. But if you got a paper ticket, you do need to validate it in those little machines that are on the platform. They're usually either green or yellow. You stick your ticket in there and it stamps it, and then you will avoid a fine when the conductor comes around to check your ticket.
Missing this validation step can be a real problem. An unstamped ticket can be considered invalid, and conductors on the trains aren't particularly sympathetic to tourist excuses like, "I didn't know."
Buying a transit pass for the buses, the metro, or in the case of Venice, the Vaporetto water bus can really save you money. But these passes do come with some quirks that you need to know about so that you don't run into a problem.
The first one is misunderstanding when the pass becomes valid. It really doesn't become valid until you first use it. So there's no reason not to buy it in advance. Waiting till you arrive means you probably are going to have to stand in line when you really want to get on with your vacation.
The other misunderstanding is about how long the pass actually lasts. So if you buy a 48-hour pass and you're sort of thinking, well, that'll last me for 2 days. Well, it actually lasts 48 hours from the first time that you used it.
So if you used it the first time at 4 one afternoon and 2 days later, when it gets to 4, it's going to expire, even though in your head it should be good for the rest of that day. So just be careful for this little quirk. It doesn't trip you up.
Tapping in and out with a credit card or your phone is one of the easiest ways to get around on public transportation in many of the Italian cities, but they do come with a rule built into the system that can trip people up, particularly when they're traveling with more than one person.
Here's the rule. Each person needs to have their own credit card or phone. So that means if you're traveling with a group or particularly with a family, everybody needs to have their own credit card. And the reason for this is they track you on the train, you're in and you're out, based on your credit card. And in fact, they have a machine that will read your card and tell whether you're on the train with your own ticket or not. And if you aren't, you can get a fine.
So if you're traveling with a group or a family, it might just be better to go ahead and get paper transit passes or tickets. Now, for the metro trains, you can get them at kiosks in the station or at the ticket window. For buses, what you're going to want to do is go into a tabacchi, which is like a newsstand. And they're identified because there's a blue sign with a great big T on it up above the door of the store. Italy is full of small traps around credit card transactions and cash withdrawals. And travelers really don't notice this until they get home and look at their bank statement, usually, or their credit card statement.
A couple of ways this happens. It could be a foreign transaction fee that your credit card charges. Fairly common, but easy to find a card that doesn't have it. Or they offer you in a restaurant to pay in dollars rather than euro to do a conversion.
Always decline the conversion. It costs you more if you let them convert into dollars.
Paying in dollars sounds like it would be convenient, but you're going to be hit with a bad exchange rate and pay more for your meal.
The same thing can happen when you need cash. If you go to one of those cash machines labeled ATM, and they're everywhere, they're usually blue and yellow, and they say Eurostar. If you take your money out of one of those cash machines, you will end up paying not only fees, but you'll get a poor exchange rate. What you want to do is go to a bank cash machine, and they're called bancomat in Italy. And there you won't get hit with as big a charge, and you'll get a better exchange rate. Also, these are a little more difficult to find. And the Italian post office, they also have cash machines, usually right outside the door of the post office. And they're yellow, and they say Post Italiane, and they offer favorable exchange rates also.
So before you leave, get one of these no foreign exchange fee cards, and always remember to decline the conversion either on a credit card transaction or on a bank machine transaction, because you get asked there too.
Renting a car in Italy can come with a couple of nasty surprises, which don't arrive until months after you get home from your trip. One of them is a fine for going into a restricted traffic zone called a ZTL. And the second is for getting a speeding ticket when you didn't even get stopped by a cop.
The ZTL problem is it's often not obvious that you're about to enter one. Now they do have a lighted sign up high, which you could always look for, but there's no gate or barrier or stop sign. It needs to be open so the people who are authorized can go in. And it's easy to miss the sign if you're distracted by your GPS or watching traffic. And once you've gone in, you're going to get the fine. There's no getting out.
Yeah.
You check in, but you don't check out.
When it comes to speeding tickets, these come from speed cameras that are on the side of the road or up above, and not from cops. The cops never stop you to give you a speeding ticket. And that's how you get one without even knowing it. So the thing to do is not speed or keep an eye out for these speed traps. And they are always signposted before you reach them that there's one coming up. So you do have a way to know that they're coming and you can slow down.
One of the most common ways people miss seeing a site that they really have their heart set on it is by assuming that it operates the way it used to or the way they expect it to.
These days, you just can't count on showing up and buying a ticket when you get there. Almost all the major sites now offer, and many require, that you buy a ticket ahead of time. And the best way to do it is to go online, and when you buy a ticket online, you will be assigned both a date and a time that you will be able to enter that. And that goes for the Vatican and the Colosseum in Rome, the Uffizi Gallery and then some of the Duomo things in Florence, the Last Supper in Milan, etc.
The rules about what you pay for have changed too. The Pantheon in Rome used to be free for a long time, but now you need to pay to get in. And in Venice, they've instituted an access system where on high traffic days in the summer, usually Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, but some other days, you need to go online, pay your access fee, and get a QR code to show that you're able to go in with authorization.
Then there's the separate question of whether a place is open and fully accessible on the day that you want to visit. For example, most museums are closed on Mondays, and other major attractions have their own closure patterns.
Holiday periods can affect opening too, and a holiday we don't have in the US but it's really important in Italy is Ferragosto on the 15th of August. So that day and around there you may find different hours. And a place may be open but not in quite the way you expect because of maintenance, construction, or for some other reason.
The Trevi Fountain is a really good example of this. You may go to the Trevi Fountain expecting the water to be flowing, and lo and behold, you get there and you find out that it's empty and the water's turned off and they're collecting the coins or doing maintenance work on the fountain.
Those coin collections are usually Monday and Friday mornings, but not always. So be sure to check before you go over there and expect the fountain to be fountaining.
And the other thing to know about the Trevi Fountain is this is a new thing this year, 2026, which is they charge a €2 fee to actually get down to the basin level of the fountain. You have to wait in line and then pay your €2, and then you can go down to the basin level to take your picture and throw your coin over your shoulder.
If something matters to you, check before you make your final plan. See if you have to book, what the opening hours are, what the opening days are, because we'll just figure it out when we get there is an easy way to miss your top attraction.
Now let's talk about something that we mentioned at the beginning of this video, and it's kind of a scam that we really just learned about. So here's the thing. You know, it should be easy to go on an official site for, let's say, a museum and buy a ticket, right? But as it turns out, there are a lot of look-alike sites where if you go on them and you don't realize it's not the official site, you end up paying a lot more than you would if you'd been on the official site. Now, they'll probably get you into the museum or whatever, but you're just going to be paying more than you should.
The tricky part is that these scam websites can look convincing. The official site for the Uffizi Museum in Florence is uffizi.it, but there might be a site uffizi-museum-florence that shows up at the top of your search results. They're trying to get you to go there and buy your ticket from them at an inflated price.
And just to give you an idea of what the upcharge could be, if you buy a ticket to the Uffizi Gallery, which also includes the Boboli Gardens and the Pitti Palace, you're going to pay €29 at the official site. If you go to one of these look-alike sites, you're going to pay €95 for the exact same thing.
This is what stunned us. We were aware from trying to find the right sites ourselves online, but we had no idea what the upcharge could be. So how do you tell whether a site is official? Because it can be sort of tricky. A really good hint is how the website looks. Does it have the collections in it? Maybe a map with the picture of the most important works in there, discusses the hours, gives tips for visitors, talks about what tour guides have to do to go into the museum. That's actually a really good one. So if you look for those things, you can identify the site that's the official one rather than one of these look-alike sites.
Now, we're not talking in this case about the resellers like Viator or Get Your Guide or some of those, because they're not pretending to be something that they're not. And they have their place. If you really want a tour of something, or if you can't get a ticket at the official site because they're all sold out, often you can go to Viator or Get Your Guide or one of these, and they will have tickets available. Now, you will pay a somewhat higher price, But if it's something you really want to do, that could be worthwhile. For example, I wanted to climb the dome at the Duomo in Florence, and the tickets were all sold out because that's very popular. So I went to Get Your Guide, I think, and I paid about €20 more than I would have at the official site, but I got to go up and climb the dome, which is what I really wanted to do. So it was worth it to me.
So before you buy, compare the websites, examine them for some of these things that we talked about, because there's a place to pay more for the ticket, but you want that to be when you have a reason to do it, not when you were tricked into it.
Italy has an official program that makes most state museums and archaeological sites free on the first Sunday of the month. Now, this can seem like a great way to save money, and it is. Unfortunately, everybody else is going to have exactly the same idea. So what seemed like a great money-saving idea might turn out to be something that eats up your entire day waiting in lines.
If you're determined to go on one of these free days, get there right when it opens or even earlier and get in line. Otherwise, if your time is tight, it may be a lot better to choose to go on a regular day and just pay for it.
Having a ticket in advance feels like you're all set. But at many sites in Italy, it doesn't get you straight into the entrance. There's still more to do before you can go in.
Even if you have one of these skip the line tickets, what that usually means is you're skipping the line to buy the tickets. You may still have to go through security or check in early before you can even get into the site.
Some places are really strict about this. So for example, the Last Supper in Milan, you're supposed to get there 30 minutes in advance, even though you already have a ticket. But you have to go and get your ticket validated. And once you do that, they want you to be at the door 15 minutes before your time to go in. And the Vatican Museum also has a similar rule where you have to get there early.
So don't treat your entry time as your arrival time. Read the rules, get there in accordance with those, because getting there late can mean you miss seeing the site entirely.
The major churches in Italy are not just sightseeing stops, they are still religious spaces. And you can be turned away at the door if you're dressed inappropriately, if you're dressed for summer rather than for church.
The real problem is bare shoulders, bare midriff, or shorts that are too short. And they have rules about these that will turn you away at the Vatican, at St. Mark's in Venice, at the Duomo in Florence, and lots of other churches around Italy.
It can feel surprisingly awkward to be standing at the entrance with your ticket and to be turned away because of what you're wearing.
So the solution is to carry a scarf or a shawl or something similar that you can use as a light cover-up. Now, there may be somebody nearby selling them, but you really shouldn't count on that.
A common planning mistake in Italy is making a list of things that you want to see in a given city, for example, without taking into account where they are located relative to each other. And so the result is you end up crisscrossing back and forth across the city and wasting a lot of time and energy.
So in a place like Milan or Rome, you really want to divide it into neighborhoods and visit all the sites in one neighborhood together. Now, an easy way to do that is there's a tool called Google My Maps on your computer. You can't use it on your tablet or your phone. It's separate from Google Maps. And in there, it's easy to plot all of your destinations on the map, and you can see them relative to each other. I'll put a link in the description to Google My Maps so you can give it a try for your trip.
Some of Italy's biggest attractions are really part of a bigger experience. And if you go through them and sort of check them off and move on, then you're missing a lot of what makes it extremely special.
The Duomo complex in Florence is a great example. A lot of people will go into the church, the Duomo itself, and think that they've done the Duomo. But actually there are 4 other places that are worth seeing. If you climb the dome or the bell tower with your ticket, you're also able to get into the Opera del Duomo Museum and Santa Reparata, the church that was before the Duomo that's underneath.
And the Opera del Duomo Museum, frankly, we think is one of the best things to see in Florence. So you really don't want to miss that. And we have a video about visiting the Duomo that'll actually explain why.
The Uffizi in Florence is another good example. An Uffizi ticket includes the Pitti Palace with an artwork collection and the Boboli Gardens. Now, the Boboli Gardens, which is behind the Pitti Palace, is often overlooked, but it becomes one of the places people most remember about Florence, with its fountains and gardens and wonderful views back over Florence. So if you were to just go to the Uffizi and not take advantage of these other sites, you're missing part of the experience. Eating and drinking in Italy is one of the real pleasures, but there are some customs that work differently than people expect. Running into them unexpectedly can feel awkward or just confusing.
One very common mistake in Italy is expecting the bill to show up when you're finished eating. That just doesn't happen. If you want to pay your bill, you have to ask for it. Il conto per favore.
Paying for your meal can surprise people too. The server doesn't take your card away like they do in the US. They bring a payment terminal to the table, or they ask you to go to the register, which is called la cassa.
Coffee is another one. The exact same coffee will cost you less if you drink it standing at the bar than if you order it as you sit down at a table. And if you don't know this, you can be kind of confused and surprised when you get your bill and it ends up being more than you expected.
We cover these restaurant customs in more detail in our restaurant etiquette and how to order videos, which we'll link in the description below the video.
Taxis and Ubers work differently in Italy than they do in the US. For example, you can't just flag down a taxi in the street. You have to go to a taxi stand or call or use an app. And otherwise you could be standing on the street corner waving at taxis and wondering why none of them will stop for you.
Uber operates quite differently in Italy, and this is the second thing that we talked about at the beginning is new information to us on exactly how it works. And it's like this. Only professional licensed drivers are allowed, and what that means is the only cars you can get are the expensive Uber Black models.
And the system works like this, which is different than the US. The Uber drivers can't just cruise waiting for a fare that calls that's in the area where they are. No, they have to wait in a designated area until they get an assignment. And so it may take much longer for them to arrive at where you are than what you would be used to. And so that means you might be waiting quite a while for your driver to arrive.
So the message is, don't count on Uber as a cheap taxi alternative. There's a place for it, certainly, to pay the extra price, but make sure it's when you want to do it and it makes sense for you to book the Uber Black service.
Then there are the smaller daily things like public toilets. In Italy, a public toilet will probably cost €1 to €2. So it's smart to carry around some coins so that you're not caught off guard and have no way to go to the bathroom. If you can't find a public toilet, the best thing to do is to stop into a bar or a cafe, order something small like a water or a coffee, and then ask them to use the bathroom.
It's really the polite thing to do rather than just going in and using the bathroom.
Just assuming you can use it.
Right.
Because it is there for their patrons.
And a coffee and a water are going to cost you around €1 each. So you're not making a big investment in your bathroom trip. And here's a tip. Don't keep buying plastic water bottles all day. Italy is full of public drinking fountains and the water is safe. In Rome, these fountains are called Nasoni and you'll find them all over the city. So buy the water bottle once, refill it as you go, and you'll have your water you need to keep yourself hydrated. It's one of the nicer things about getting around once you know to look for them.
Want more useful Italy travel tips? Watch these videos next. Ciao for now.
A presto!